All right. I will call the Tuesday, February 8th, Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting to order. It is 6:35. And our first order of business is closed session. Do we have any public comments on our closed session for tonight? We have nobody here in the audience, so we do not have any audience or any other comments. So our closed session is a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation with significant exposure to litigation pursuant to a special education program dispute. We have one case to work on tonight, and we will now recess into closed session at 6:36. All right, we are reconvening into open session. It is 7:02. This is the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees meeting for, today? For February 8th.
Your birthday.
You should know.
You should know.
February 8th. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to note that we have 3 trustees here, Rachel Litwack, myself, Shelley Hamilton, and Marie O'Rio in present. So we have quorum for this evening, but we have 2 trustees missing. All right, so we are reconvening here, and we will start with our procedural items this evening, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I often start our Pledge of Allegiance with a few moments and reflections on democracy and being civically engaged, but tonight we are going to have a very special presentation, so I'm going to let that speak for itself in this evening's reflections. But we will have a Pledge of Allegiance, and we have our students here in the audience, so we would like to have you all lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So,
Who would like to?
Yeah?
Okay,
All
we have someone here.
Lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
We have our flags up here.
Go for it. You can do it. Go for it. Just start us off and we'll follow. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. Our next procedural item is the adoption of the agenda and the time allocations that we have on the agenda. Are there any?
Did we report on the closed session?
Not yet.
Okay, good.
I'm following along on my notes here.
I'm just
Thank you. We were just in a closed session, so we'll have to report on that in a minute. Any amendments to our meeting this evening?
No.
Nope, no
Ready to go.
amendments. Okay, so I will entertain a motion then for the agenda.
I'll move that we adopt the agenda.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we will do a vote to adopt the agenda. Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. We have an adoption of our agenda. We can move forward tonight. Wonderful. All right, our first big item on our agenda is our student presentation, and we are so thrilled to have you all here. It's wonderful to be back in person and to see everybody out here in the audience, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us this evening. So I am going to turn it over to our superintendent to let us know about the presentation this evening.
Great, thank you. Just really want to welcome all of you Hidden Valley Hawks and the Hawk Flock. I like that. So thank you, Elizabeth. The Hawk Flock's in the house tonight. So welcome everybody, and we're so excited to have you all do your presentation. But before we get started, we would love it if you students could please introduce your teachers and that other person in the room, you know what I'm talking about, your principal. And then also introduce yourself. So if we could have maybe one student from Ms. Harkey's class, one student from Mr. Brand's, and then anybody could do this fish. And then when you do, also introduce yourself and then introduce who brought you here tonight or who is with you. So you might have family members, or you might have friends or neighbors who came to the presentation with you this evening. And so how would you like to have them start? Yeah.
And just say your name.
I'm Pete, this is Miss Sophie, and my dad brought me.
Great, welcome.
Hello, hello, Dad.
I'm Luke, Miss Rocky's my teacher, and my mom and my brother.
All right, welcome. And what are your brother and your mom's names?
Jackal and Don.
Nice to meet you. See, oh, now I recognize you.
My name is Nico, and my mom is Anna. My name is Owen, and my mom.
Yeah.
There's Mr. Brand.
Oh, yeah.
Any more students on that side? No?
My name is Emily, and my teacher is Mr. Brent, and my mom brought me.
And what's your mom's name?
Carrie.
Carrie. Nice to have your mom here with you.
My name is Lily, and my dad brought me here.
And who's your dad? Where is he? In the back. Great.
My name is Addie. My teacher is Mr. Grant, and my mom is Sarah.
Oh, hello, Mom.
My name is Maggie. My teacher is Mr. Grant, and then my dad brought me here.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay, any more Hawks? Oh, there we are.
Two
Back
more.
Second row. Yeah.
I'm Desire, and my teacher is Miss Forky, and my mother brought me home.
Very good. What's your mom's name?
Jasmine.
Hi,
Jasmine.
My name is Helena, and my teacher is Miss Forky, and my dad Josh brought me here.
All right. Do you have any other parent here? All right. Well, thank you all so very much for being with you this evening. And so there was one more person you have to introduce. Who is that? Everybody in unison. Ready?
Yes.
There you go. Thank you. All right. And Christy, would you like to take it over?
Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah. Where's it more comfortable for you?
I'll stand. So thank you all my Hawk friends for being here. We're super excited to have you lead the show. But I did want to mention both Mrs. Forky and Mr. Brandt, who have been big risk takers when we were online and hybrid teaching, kind of leading the way, doing new things, teaching others. And that's also true with our equity discussions. They've taken the steps to get uncomfortable and make mistakes and have it be okay, and doing that in front of the kids. So I'm super proud of them. They are amazing and they elevate everything we do. Welcome, Eric and Sarah.
All right, well, I'm Eric Brandt, and I know a bunch of you. I've been teaching in the district for a little over 20 years, and I've done book clubs and reading and writing all sorts of different ways over that time. So the last couple of years, you spent all of your meetings talking about budgets and declining enrollment and updated COVID stuff, so this should be a little breath of fresh air, having the kids actually here in person. And I'm excited to have them come and see what a school board does.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about your guys' role as well with our kind of government study. In terms of book clubs, we've done it lots of different ways. Definitely when we went to COVID, Ms. Horkey and I have been doing book clubs with our classes for a number of years. And we found as soon as we went virtual, that was one of the best ways that we could tie in all the new literature that we've been putting in our libraries over the last 6 years. A lot of the momentum in trainings that we've been doing, momentum in teaching. So we can kind of apply a lot of the stuff that we've done, and getting the kids on the computer, actually getting feedback from them was really difficult. You give them a book and you cross your fingers that they're reading at home. But we already had kind of book clubs rolling, and as soon as we went virtual, that was our easiest way to have 4 kids sitting with us talking about their book. And so we quickly adopted that model, even from the very beginning of COVID, to just kind of keep something that was almost exactly the same online as it was in the classroom. The next year, when we were full virtual, we spent a lot of time figuring out what we thought, like, what's the best way to keep this ball rolling? And we quickly discovered there wasn't a best way, but we would just keep trying new things all year long. So we did book clubs like half the kids at home, half at school, all of them at home, like trying to have the two classes mixed up.
And we spent quite a bit of time making sure that we were connecting with them in small group. I think that was something that was really successful during our COVID at home time and also when we were hybrid, to make them feel like they were part of a larger community, but still being held accountable for those smaller groups that they were part of and being able to make the connections between both of our classes. So when we did come back last spring, even before that, they all felt like they were together. They did not feel that they were, in just one class or in the other. They kind of melded together and created a larger fifth grade community.
Yeah, because we did almost all of our Zooms with both classes together, kind of tag team teaching. But a lot of kids, adults, you don't want to talk on the Zoom and have everyone looking at you.
No.
So having them in little groups, having groups of 4, your friends are holding you accountable to doing your work and discussing the novel. It kind of forced in a positive way some like good peer pressure to keep the the reading going. And so we kind of had that going, and then adding lots of new books. So that was kind of the this year and the end of last year, just adding a lot of new titles to our selection. And challenging the kids to do things. And it was nice to have, this year we've added, we have a book club in the resource room. We have, Sarah has a combo class, so we have 4th graders with 5th graders and 5th with 4th, and so we could really just mix them up, interest-wise, grade level, reading-wise, in just every possible way. So it's logistically challenging, and it's been hard to get the right number of books all the time, but I think the payoff has been great. So here, where do I point this?
Is it on the left side of the switch?
Is it the laser pointer?
Yes, it's a laser pointer. Yeah, it's a good question.
On the side.
They need technology support. Sarah is a tech lady.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah does technology. So this year we've been reading a whole bunch of books. I'll kind of show photos of kind of all of them as we go through. And we really we decided that a common theme was just overcoming obstacles was the title I kind of gave to.
Focus.
Yeah. So we've had kids, Miss Hirsch's class, a bunch of them are reading Wonder right now. And that one, very popular book, so kind of get the kids into it. We've tried to get books with basically a lot of, I guess I get to the mirror window part, just a whole variety of books with characters that are facing challenges that most of our students, or a lot of them, may not have any experience with. So some of the books have historical events, like The War That Saved My Life takes place during World War II. The Night Diary takes place in, kids will talk about the stories. So basically just trying to bring larger historical events down to their level where they can understand, not just as something in a textbook, but they can understand the lives of some people that lived through these.
And having them be able to intermingle with our social studies and history, so our literature and our social studies, cross-curricular, we're able to make a lot of inferences and connections between those periods of time and currently what's happening in the world.
Yeah, so and the whole idea of a mirror and window where the kids are reading books that reflect themselves and other books where they're looking into someone else's life that may be quite a bit different from their own. So the Prairie Lotus there is in, Gold Rush era up to modern day books. Refugee is like people escaping the Syrian war. So trying to help them see, make connections across time. We found when our kids came back to the classroom at the end of last year, definitely this was one of the nice things they did, like Ms. Horkey had already said. They'd already made lots of connections with kids in both of the 5th grade classes, and it really helped. We were like, okay, let's keep rolling with it this year, and we really widened our libraries and tried to deepen the discussion, because our whole thing is having the kids talk, not just, I read it all, I'm done.
Yeah.
Now what? But really, trying to help them look at the deeper meanings of the stories and have some good discussion. So that's constantly a challenge. But it is, even if they've read it, they're like, they're starting to look deeper and understand the stories. Go ahead.
Oh, and we are actually introducing a graphic novel. We finished our third book club book last week, and we've started taking a little break before midwinter break to concentrate on studying graphic novels that also overcome adversity and have historical references, and teaching them really how to read a graphic novel like it is a chapter book. So we just started that, which has been great.
We have them, grouped in a lot of different ways, as I mentioned before. And I think we have about 6 different teachers helping us at this point. From the resource room to all the 4th and 5th grade classes. We have some groups of 10 that Ms. Horkey is sitting with them a bunch, and some that are only 3, kind of depending on the story and the time that we have. But it's time for the kids to talk. So, would anyone like to go first? It'll probably about a minute. They're each gonna just tell about the story a little bit, and then what they're kind of getting out of it. So,
I think Phoebe would like to go.
Phoebe, you want to go? Okay. So why don't you stand right here, and they can hear you.
Should I start? Hi everyone, my name is Phoebe Freeman, and I'm here to talk about Prairie Lotus. Prairie Lotus is about a 14-year-old Chinese-American girl in the 1880s named Hannah. Hannah moves to Dakota Territory. People there have never seen a Chinese person before, and they mistreat her because of that. For example, Hannah is attacked by Mr. Swanson, a grown man, and everyone blames Hannah even though Mr. Swanson is known for being violent and drunk. But Hannah has a dream to make dresses, so she perseveres. By the end, more people in Hannah's town are kinder to her, and she even has a friend. I've read 2 other books in book club, which, by the way, is super fun. You have a certain amount of pages to read each day for 4 weeks. Every day after reading, we record a summary of what we've read and our strong thoughts. On Fridays, all the groups reading the same book merge into one giant group. Like I said, super fun. The books we read are often so good, I'm tempted to read past the limit. Don't worry, I won't.
So, they want to step up? Oh, wow.
My name is Emily, as I already said, and I've been reading The War That Saved My Life. Actually, I read it. The main character's name is Ada. She lives in London, but later in the story, she moves to the countryside. And the setting of the story is the beginning of World War II. And the main struggle for Ada is she has an abusive and neglectful mom, and she also struggles with a clubfoot. She runs away during the children's evacuation out of London, and she and her brother live with a stranger named Susan. And Ada has a lot of struggles with her conflicted feelings about her abusive birth mother and loving foster mother, and where her loyalties lie. She's also looked down upon because of her clubfoot.
Oh, excellent.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I think she's ready.
When are we here?
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, my name is Owen. I've been reading Out of My Mind. The main character, Melody Brooks, lives in a small town in Ohio with her family. One of the main struggles is she was born with cerebral palsy, so she can't walk, talk, or control her body. But she is very smart but unable to communicate with other people. One thing I've learned while reading this book is some people are a lot smarter than they seem or look, but they don't have a way to show it. The thing I like about book clubs is we read books that we regularly would never have known about, and sometimes there is a series of books.
My name is Luke. I read Refugee. The story follows 3 characters from 3 different time periods as they escape dangerous environments in their countries. Joseph lives in Germany and he is Jewish, so he's in the middle of World War II, so the Nazis don't want him in Germany, so he has to flee. Isabel is in Cuba and she has to leave because she is having political chaos in her country. Mohammed lives in Syria and he has to flee because his home is in the middle of a war. This is the Syrian war. One thing I've learned reading this book is that lots of people are affected from like other people's actions and that people make bad choices and sometimes it affects other people. I look forward to having a next book club. We've already read 2 so far and they're really good. Yeah.
Nico, come here.
Is she in the back?
Yeah. Nice t-shirt.
Hello, I'm Desire. I'm reading Front Desk. The main character's name is Mia Tang, and she lives in a motel in LA. She moved to China with her family for a better life. For some time, she lived in her car, but she got offered a job in a motel, so that's why she works there. One thing I learned while reading this book is that, what have I learned? Well, I learned that no matter where you come from, you can also make it in a new place. And after reading this book, I now realize, well, I realized that the main character's jeans look amazing, but that's not really. Does that really count? Okay. I recommend this book if you want to read a story that has interesting characters and good personalities. The thing I like about book clubs is that you get to read and socialize with other people that you probably haven't met yet.
Okay, excellent. Exactly. We're looking at you.
My name is Helena, and I've been reading Amal Unbound. The main character, Amal, lives in Pakistan on a farm with her family. The main struggle that this character has to overcome in this novel is that she's forced to be a servant and doesn't want to put her family in danger. And she also has to deal with the idea that she's going to be enslaved for a really long time. The thing I like about book clubs is that we get to discuss the book in a group and make predictions. I also read books I really liked and would not have understood if I just read it. I'm looking forward to reading other books in a book club this year.
Hi, my name is Maggie. I've also been reading Amal Unbound. The main character, Amal, does live in Pakistan with her 4 sisters, her mother, and her father. So Amal is caught in like a series of unfortunate events. Amal is taken away from her family to work as a servant for a rude, self-entitled man named Jawad Sahib. She now has to watch herself go from like the oldest in her family, like the most powerful sibling, to a lowly servant. The main struggle that this character has to overcome in this novel is Amal has to work as a servant because she disrespected the person that basically runs her village, as well as a couple others. I'd recommend this book if you want to read a story that like has struggles that make the character stronger in the end, and unlikely friendships, as well as inspiring comebacks. The thing I like about book clubs is that you read books you wouldn't have found or even read before. And they're also really educational. And they're also like super realistic. And a couple of them are based on true stories.
Most of the stories end in a better situation for the character than they started at the beginning of the story.
Hi, my name is Addie, and I've been reading The Night Diary. The main character, Nisha, lives in India and Pakistan. In the 1947 partition, she and her Hindu father and brother must cross from the newly created Pakistan into India. Nisha has to deal with the fact that her deceased mother is Muslim and her father is Hindu. She doesn't feel like she belongs in the new India, but she soon realizes that she does, and it doesn't matter what religion she is. After reading this book, I now realize that religion does matter in lots of countries, and they sometimes split countries and families like it did in this book.
Hello, my name is Lily, and I've been reading Out of My Mind. The main character, Melody Brooks, lives in Ohio. The main struggle this character has to overcome in the novel, she has cerebral palsy and she can't walk or talk or control her body, but her mind is just fine. But she is unable to communicate. After reading this book, I now realize no matter how you look, everyone has feelings, even if they can't always clearly communicate. I'd recommend this book if you want to read a story that showcases you can have a physical disability and be smart enough to help your academic team win a tournament.
Hi, my name is Nico, and I've been reading Other Worlds for Home. In this book, there is a girl named Jude that went with her mom to Cincinnati because she lived in Syria during the Syrian war. So she had to move to America, but she left her other family members behind, including her friends, her dad, and her brother. She was very worried about her brother because he actually ran away and went to a war zone during this war. It was really hard for her to fit in because she didn't speak their language and she dressed different and she had a really hard time making friends. One thing I've learned while reading this book is that you can't judge people for what language they speak or what clothes they wear. After reading this book, I now realized that, I don't know. The thing I like about book clubs is that you can read a book, summarize it, and you actually have someone to tell it about, and you can't, it's not all to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great job, fifth graders.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good book.
You good job, guys.
Excellent. Good job.
I just wanted to thank Superintendent Waiver and the board because we wouldn't be in this place if it wasn't for all of your efforts to promote equity and provide funding for all these different hubs. I hope you can see and hear some of the equity in action, but thank you, it wouldn't happen without you.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
It is absolutely the highlight of any board meeting when we have students come and present, and especially to learn something that you are all learning and that's impacting you in school. And so it's so great for us to know that the work that we are doing around racial equity and social justice is making it right into the classroom, which is where we wanted it to be and where it needs to be. So thank you, fantastic Mrs. Fish, and also to your fantastic teachers, Mr. Brandt and Ms. Horkey, for bringing this alive, and for all of you, very articulate Hawks, being able to say something about every single one of your books and something that you learned that was personal and meaningful to you. And so thank you, and you all keep up the fantastic work, parents, guardians, friends, everybody who is here supporting the kids tonight. It's excellent to have you all here. And then before you all go, what we would love for you to be able to do is to come up, and you all know this person here, right? Miss Machado.
what do they call you? Teresa. All right. And she made something extra special for each of you here this evening. So we'd like each of the students to come up. And Teresa, you're going to have to step away, come around, okay? Okay. And do this part. And then also what we love is if our students will all take pictures with the trustees.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll get that. Mr. Sable, our Director of Student Services right now, is our amazing poster, social media poster for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So whenever you see anything on social media, 9 times out of 10 is coming from Eric. So we'll be sure to get something up tonight. Parents, is it okay if your children's pictures are up? Okay, fantastic. All right, so let's all come up, students. Come up, trustees.
Oh, yeah,
around
that's
the front of the
for the
table.
pencils?
Yep, and then.
You're going to go on the other side.
Yep, we'll go on the other side.
Oh, what's that? What is that?
And then, Eric, you have yours
For you. Just like, oh yeah, that's my mom.
All right, where do you want us to stand?
She's never been here before.
Oh wow.
I know, good to see you too. Your birthday.
Yeah, so you've been here before.
Yeah, this is
No, it doesn't. Sneak. It doesn't go in the dryer.
all right. I think we're gonna have to
We're gonna have to, you guys, okay, so we're gonna have to like get in rows and stuff after you get your pencil.
Yeah.
Do pictures, okay, so wait, here. You need to get in.
Okay guys, let me give you these first. A little something.
Come on over. Let's go next. Well, then see.
Your little bookmark.
Hey, Rick. We're in the back.
All of you look great. Teresa in the front is, the composition is kind of different. Usually people look at the camera.
Right.
Get in the picture if you want to, Teresa, come on.
Teresa, they need you.
Come on now.
Come on, you've known these kids since they were 5.
Legacy.
But Nico's taller than you, we can't see you.
All right, Hawk. Amazing job. This way, here we go.
Smile.
Wow, from here.
Sorry.
Smile. Okay.
That was funny.
You held in the eye. I know. It's in the eyes. It's in the eyes.
Yes. High smile, guys. That was the eyes.
All that. You guys did awesome. I'm so proud of you guys.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Wonderful. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for just pivoting and moving and working with all the last couple of years.
Oh,
yeah, I was fine. Well, they've also been because I like all books.
I like the little week we got.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
I hope the rest of your meeting is that much fun. I got it.
I don't think we can top that. I don't think we can top that. It is.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Good job.
Thank you, thank you. All right, sorry, thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Is this social media?
That's right. You can, yeah, that's my value.
Dangerous title, right? Yeah, no, yeah, I don't like that better than El Capitano. No,
They're out of here at 7:35.
Okay. All right. Oh, wow, much less people.
I know. I don't know how we're gonna top that.
Okay, we're public people. Yeah.
All right, so bringing us back to our agenda. We are now on to item number E, communication. So we have a report out from closed session. And our report out from closed session is that we had unanimous approval of a settlement agreement for the special education dispute for student SSID number 619-188-5139.
9-3.
93, thank you. 193.
Mhm.
All right, that's the report out from the closed section. We are moving on to public comment regarding items that are not on the agenda. So if we have anybody who would like, we do have somebody here in the audience who would like to come up and speak to us.
Yes, where do I stand?
There's the podium.
There's the podium there. And just give us your name and your affiliation, and we usually do 3 minutes for non-agenda items. So welcome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Libby Landels-Cobb. I am a parent at Brookside Elementary. I have 2 biracial boys who go to Brookside, and I am on the Parent Guardian Equity Task Force. And I am so glad to have listened to this group tonight. It's such a celebration of the work that we're doing. And I'm here to give you, as board members, a little bit of a call to action to be able to continue to deepen this work. I listened to the January 25th board meeting on the racial equity plan. And I just wanted to share some feedback for you as board members about the leadership that I hope that I can see in all of you in doing this work. So, and I want to make it clear that I am speaking for myself, not for the task force by itself, on its own, but as a mother of kids in this school, brown kids in this school who are going through this experience. I'm heartened to see the investment that Julia and Marcy and the team are making in equity. We saw it today. It's super cool. But we have a long road to go in this predominantly white, affluent community, and I really want to see that it continues to be a priority. And I did not see the leadership that I hoped from you as board members during the January 25th meeting, and so I wanted to provide some reflections. The first was that all of your comments on the board plan were platitudes. They were, great job, we're so glad you're doing this. And that is wonderful. I am so glad we are not in a room here full of people yelling us about critical race theory. That is awesome. And yet we should be pushing our district to be asking the hard questions and really deeply investing in this. So you didn't ask things like, what are you getting wrong? Or what feedback are you hearing from parents or students or teachers of color that we need to be working on? Or what ambitious goals are we holding ourselves accountable for? Or are we reaching those goals? The second is, I was listening, but my assumption is that there were no people of color in the room when that discussion was being had. And that's a little bit of feedback for Marcy and Julia, because we weren't told as task force members that this discussion was happening. But it's also feedback for you as the board that you didn't call that and ask, why are we, as white leaders, having this discussion without the members of community who are being impacted by it the most? The third was that I observed a low level of fluency from some of you as individuals, and I know you're not all here on this topic. So I don't know the extent to which each of you has had equity training, but I would encourage you to deepen your own personal journeys as individuals and as a group to explore your role in leading this work for our district. One of you said that you'd done zero work on the issue, but that you knew it was issue because you had watched Roots as a child. And that signaled to me a need for deeper investment in this, because there's a lot more underneath that we need to be really prioritizing. And finally, it concerned me that you didn't discuss as a board and a district what's next. So it is awesome, the work that's being done, and I see it in my kids' classroom every day. And I am insatiable for us to be doing more, and I need you to be insatiable as well. And so I want to feel the urgency and dissatisfaction for where we are as a country, where we are as a district, and that we're continuing to push this forward. Discussions about race and equity are happening in school board rooms all over the country, and as I said, we are lucky that we are not yelling at each other about this, and I am grateful for your support. but I want to hear and see you be talking about this every single board meeting and in the context of everything that you do. You need to get training so you know more, so that you can speak fluently about these issues and know what kinds of questions you should be asking. You need to be talking about this at every meeting, not just about the plan and the explicit equity actions, but in every item. You need to be talking about what are the equity implications. You need to be asking parents, students, and teachers of color for their input and perspective about what's working and what needs to change. And you need to be holding our district leaders accountable to a high standard for continuing the work. It's your job to be pushing them and to be asking these hard questions. Every day, I trust you with my brown kids. And we love our Ross Valley community, and on the whole, they are very happy here. But there's more to be done. I don't have time today to tell you the many times that they have been othered in their classrooms and for the many missed opportunities I've seen for all of our Ross Valley kids to be taught to be smart, better citizens and focus on this issue in a deeper way. And so I am asking you to continue to elevate this as a priority so that we can continue to build our next generation of students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate you coming. Thank you. All right. Without anyone else here in the audience to make a comment on non-agenda items, we'll go ahead to board announcements. Are there any board announcements? So these are not committee report outs.
Correct.
These
No.
are just any other kind of board announcements. No? All right. And correspondence and communication to the board, I think we have one.
We do have one, yeah.
Nobody.
So just want to make sure everyone saw
Yep.
that we did have one communication. And if there were any questions on
No.
that. Nope. Okay. All right. Then we can move on to item F, which are presentation on our action items. And our first one is the recommended approval of the school calendar. This is a discussion and vote item.
All right, and this is the calendar for the next school year, 2022-23. And Julia, if you want to take it away.
Sure. So the calendar has a new look next year. It's got some color. And one of the decisions we've made is to what we've called the backside of the calendar, which has had listings of site-based events.
Oh, yeah.
We're now turning that over to sites because often the timing on those changes and then we end up having to do lots of re-communicating around that. So that's a change.
Yeah.
And then next year also, winter break is going to run all the way through Monday, January 2nd, and that's because that's the holiday for New Year's Day. Our classified employees have that as a holiday. Many families have that as a holiday. And because of that, we need to add one other student day. So the first student day of the year will be one day earlier. So kids will start on Tuesday, August 16th. And then the calendar, always a thank you to our Delight, our teacher leadership group, who give input on the calendar, and then they bring it back to their sites. And actually on the decision between how to deal with that one extra day, or not extra day, but shifted day, that went out to all of our unit members, and we voted it was close, but the beginning of the year won, rather than coming back for a teacher work day on a Monday in the summer and losing a weekend. So that's the calendar, and we're recommending that the board approve.
Great. Any questions on the calendar? Thank you for telling us a little bit about kind of the approval process and who all is involved and all the different people who kind of weigh in on how it gets constructed year after year and shifts. Are there any questions on this board calendar?
No question.
No questions.
No questions? All right. Public comment. Can we go ahead and
Any
leave this
public
as a
comment?
Oh, that's right. Are there any public comments on the board calendar? No public comments. Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the calendar for next school year.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll go ahead with the vote. Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
All right. Approval of the calendar for the next school year. Item number 1. Second item is a supplement to the annual LCAP update.
All right,
Marcy?
and this is a requirement that we are to provide a mid-year update to our annual LCAP. And we have, bye Libby, see you soon, yeah. And so tonight, doing the presentation will be Julia Wolcott, Eric Sable, and Chris Carson. Great, thank you.
This is just an update discussion. I don't
Just, this does not require a vote.
Okay, thanks.
Teresa, if that's a PDF, this isn't gonna work on it.
It will.
It will?
Yeah.
Whoa. Never mind.
Is it on? Do you see something on the screen?
It is on. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Okay, here we go. Mid-year LCAP update. All right. So just a reminder, really important is our LCAP goals. And we have 3 goals. Our first goal is really all about academics and really wanting to make sure that our students are progressing, particularly in the wake of the pandemic, and that we're getting back to where we were and going further forward, and making sure that kids who aren't yet at grade level or have maybe some gaps in their learning are getting what they need in order to move forward. And then our second goal is really a wellness goal, and as a part of that wellness, it's an equity goal. And that the wording of the goal: create a safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environment in which all students feel a sense of belonging, are respected and celebrated for their individual differences, and are empowered to thrive socially, emotionally, and academically, is lifted straight from our Ross Valley racial equity mission statement. Yeah. And then the third goal being about that collaborative input and feedback that comes from our colleagues, from our students, from our parents, guardians, caretakers, and focuses on the climate and learning experience for everyone. And as we've said all along, equity is a part of all 3 of these goals, and it's really the ground on which they stand. And so Chris is going to talk us through the funding around the goals and the actions associated with the goals and where we are with that.
This is my favorite part. So when you look at it, goal 1 is assess student learning in mathematics and English language arts, ELD, and provide interventions and supports as needed. And as we looked at it, one thing that we identified is the need to expand our MTSS practices, multi-tiered systems of support. And so what we did is we did hire MTSS support providers, and those support providers are helping to identify key standards and skills in the development of those tier 1s and 2 standards, as long as working to actually implement it with the school sites. And we're also working to identify and implement an assessment tool. And so as you look at it, that's why it's so large. There's a lot of dollars associated with people and things. And the next goal. Goal 2 is create a safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environment. And as you look at it, there are a large dollar amount tied to the MTSS there as well. But as you look at that and drill down on it, specifically we're talking about counseling services and social work. And so what we're doing is we're expanding those services, and we're also providing services with an equity lens. And so that's the bulk of that. The other thing that we're offering is professional development surrounding trauma-informed practices. And we're looking to pilot a social emotional learning curriculum. And so that's also part of that goal. And our last 2 slides that I have for budget are surrounding goal 3. And goal 3, when you take a look at the LCAP in general, one of the major pushes is to have additional engagement surrounding the district and the different people that are involved, especially with parents. And so it's engagement in continuous cycle of collaborative input and feedback involving colleagues, students, and parents on the climate and learning experience of all students. And so when you look at it, the engagement are things such as a climate survey, a site climate survey, a DLAC, which is our District English Language Acquisition Committee, I think is the actual title, for a parent survey, to do things such as a coffee chat and have site listening sessions. All of it is designed to be able to engage the parents to see how we can better provide supports for them and their children. And one other thing is that I omitted in there is the parent guardian newsletter. That's something that also is part of that. And so all of those, as you look at it, it's not a lot of dollars. And Julia, would you mind moving the next slide as well? As you look at it, it's not a lot of dollars, but all of it is with the intent to increase participation and collaboration with our community partners. So those are our goal 3.
Great, thank you. And when all of these, well, our LCAP goals and then our plans and how we are spending our various buckets of money has been done through a partnership with our educational partners, of which we have many. But some of those groups are our district leadership instructional team of educators, fondly known as Delight, and those are our teacher leaders who gather monthly for a couple of hours to really talk about teaching and learning in Ross Valley. And they provide a really invaluable just vision into what's happening at each of the sites and help to craft that district vision. Our DLAC, which is run here by Eric, that brings our English language learner families together. Our Superintendent's Council, which has representatives from our parent clubs, site councils, parents within our sites, our racial equity team representatives, DLAC representatives, administrators, and other staff. And then as well, our Parent Guardian Equity Task Force and our local SELPA. And looking at the implementation of these funds that Chris just went through, we're feeling that we are off to a good start. Our MTSS partners have been collaborating with all of the sites and really just spending a lot of time in classrooms and supporting where needed. And so sometimes that's pushing in and providing some different tier 1 or tier 2 strategies, and sometimes it might look like curriculum planning. I know that right now one of our partners is working with teachers from various grade levels on history, social science curriculum and bringing in different perspectives and the counter narrative into that work and supporting kids in that way as well. And then we have this year been able to expand both our intervention support and our English language learner support by adding additional FTE, and that has been really helpful. And then challenges, really our biggest challenge is hiring and finding people to fill these positions. And then also there have been a lot of absences of staff due to COVID, and so our partners, along with some of us here at this table, spend some time in classroom subbing as well. And that pulls us from our work. All right, so the other part of this evening's presentation is all about metrics. And to set the stage from that, I wanted to share with you a portion of a book that I've been reading called Street Data. And this book is written by Shane Saphir and Jamila Dugan, and is really a book about school transformation through an equity lens. But a big part of it is looking at how we use data and the different kinds of data that we are examining. And so looking at it basically as 3 different kinds. You've got that satellite data, which is the broad bird's eye data, large granular side. It's your CASP data, your suspension rates, your absenteeism, that kind of thing. And what that data does for us, it's important. It points out patterns for us and can kind of point us in a direction, but it doesn't really give us information about individual students. And then that map level data takes us down a little bit further, and this is where your local assessments are really helpful, that you can hone in on individual standards for students,
look for groups of students. That's where you're able to put together your strategy groups, your intervention groups, and help to move kids forward in that way. And then really important is our street data. And that's that fine grain size data that really helps us to understand all of our community partners, all our students and their families and our colleagues, our teachers, and what their needs are and how we can really move forward to provide the best educational experience possible. And that looks like things like listening sessions and climate surveys and those formative assessments that we give our students, performative assessments that give more detail about what kids really know and show their ability to transfer skills to new situations.
Julia, what does MDTP stand for?
Oh, good point.
I don't know this one.
Math.
Yeah. Okay, math.
Diagnostic.
Okay. Something.
Something. It comes from Berkeley.
I think it's teacher project.
Thank you.
Oh, like, are you a math
I should
teacher?
have known,
Maybe
yeah.
like, okay.
Of course.
Good.
And SRI?
And
Okay.
SRI is Scholastic Reading Inventory.
Inventory.
Reading inventory.
That's this one then. Okay, thank you.
Sure. And F and P is Fountas.
Oh, there's an now. Yes, thank you.
You need to remember to write those out. Okay. And so here is a quote from the author of Street Data, Shane Saphir. And she says, street data is the qualitative and experiential data that emerges at eye level and on higher frequencies when we train our brains to discern it. Street data is asset-based, building on culturally responsive education by focusing on what's right in our students, schools, and communities instead of seeking out what's wrong. Street data reminds us that what is measurable is not the same as what is valuable, and that data can be humanizing, liberatory, and healing.
That.
I know, I kind of need to pause and sit with that every time I
Yes,
look
a
at
good
that
one.
quote. There's a lot in there.
There's a lot.
And I'm about to present CASP data, and I wanted to set the stage for it in this way because it's really just one small piece of a picture of where our students are and the work that we're doing. And CASP data tends to be not asset-based, right? It's a deficit-based way of looking at things. Where are we failing? Who is failing? And it's information that we need to help point us in that right direction, but it's definitely not the whole picture. All right, so here we go. Our state metrics, and you can see the little icon with the satellite there. We're in our satellite mode. So this slide compares our performance, our students' performance in 3rd through 8th grade in English language arts from 2019, which would be the last time students took the assessment before the pandemic began, and this last spring in 2021. And you can see that there was a drop of 6 points, but not a radical change.
That's not much. Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to point out that when we made the decision, so we were given, all districts were given the option to choose how they wanted to measure academic success. And the local benchmarks that we have in place don't really fit the criteria in a way that we would be able to rely on those. We decided to move forward with the CASP. Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of conversation as a staff in the district about it, and we really, there wasn't preparation, there wasn't practice tests, and there was a lot of teachers wanting to put kids at ease because, it had been a really tough time, and kids had their own feelings about what they might have missed from school, during the course of this tricky time. So, in any event, that's where we landed. And then looking at district cohort data, if you look between the bold lines, we've got our 3rd graders 2 years later in 5th grade, and that group of students actually went up 1 point. Our 4th graders going into 6th grade went down 14 points. 5th to 7th, so cohort means this is the same, roughly the same group of students. It's not the same group, but roughly. And so you can see for 5th to 7th, and then for 6th to 8th.
And so some of those students kind of maintained, but of course it's not the same test every year, so there are differences there as well.
Quick question. Do they, I mean, obviously the last couple of years have been different. Prior to this, was there preparation that went into these tests? Like as a parent, you don't really know, like are they training them for it or preparing them or gearing them up for it somehow?
Yes, I would say not a tremendous amount. I mean, I think in some districts, it's almost like it's its own curriculum, how to take the test, and that's definitely not our area of focus. There are interim assessments that the state puts out, and we do administer those, and there's 3 different categories of those. There's one where it's like the whole battery, like you're practicing the whole test, and then there are these IABs, what are they called, something, intensive blocks, I can't remember the words for them, but groups of standards that you can assess kids with, and now they have these targeted ones that'll just assess one standard. And actually, those are the ones that are the most useful because you're really getting information on, a skill or a standard that's really important within the grade level and seeing how kids are doing with it. So we do some of that, but it's a really good question. I mean, if you think about it, our 3rd graders generally have only just started, many of them, using computers.
Yeah.
We use iPads with our younger kids, and so that's a part of the preparing for an assessment is just how to log onto a computer and drag and drop or click the right icon or all of those different kinds of elements.
I was gonna say, I remember.
I was going to say, I've got an 8th grader, but I never remember there being any preparation. It's more like make sure they've slept and they've gotten food, but I've never had preparation. And I'm like, do you guys actually, I mean, is there anything? I know other schools where they do train for like a test, but I was just curious. Thank you.
We do a little bit, yeah. And it does make a difference. When you prepare more, you tend to do a little better, which isn't a surprise, but it's also not necessarily how we want to spend a lot of our instructional
Well, some of
time.
it is just functional familiarity, so that it's not the first time our kids were filling in the little bubbles on those sheets, and it was just understanding what those are, and don't do doodles all over it. I mean, just basic be comfortable with an unfamiliar new kind of thing that they don't see in their class.
And now there's no bubbles.
Now there's no bubbles, but you've got a whole other thing
It's
on
a
the
whole new world.
on the iPad or the computer. So yeah.
All right, and then moving into mathematics, a little bit of a steeper drop, 7 points there, but generally very similar, going between the 2019 to 2021. And the percentage in the center is the percent of students who either met the standard or exceeded the standard. And then again here you can see the cohorts. And that same cohort had the biggest drop in mathematics.
The 4 to 6.
And that's something we generally see is that
Cool.
in that grade level, but also when there's a drop, the drop tends to be bigger in math. And for example, I've been looking at all of this data through the lens of race and ethnicity. And student groups that perform not as well, that are not meeting standard, the gap is bigger in math than it is in ELA, which is interesting in a conversation that we are certainly having. I don't have for you this evening slides where this data is all disaggregated by race. One of the reasons for that is because you're only given the data for student groups where you have 11 or more, and some of our student groups are smaller than that, and so it feels like it's not quite the right thing to present when it's a smaller number of kids that we're talking about. But do know that we are taking a look at each of our student groups. So by race, by ethnicity, we look at gender, we look at socioeconomic status, we look at our English language learners, and try to make some sense of it and see where we have growth and see where we need to grow. All right, I'll turn it over to Eric.
So, rather than assessments being some giving a sense of finality, how can we leverage them to see, like Shane Saphir said, where we can celebrate and find strength, and also to understand where we can continue to grow, not only in our practice, but also down to the level of the individual child. And these bigger measures like CASP, of course, are, you know, by no means the only ways in which we're assessing student learning. Teachers are doing that every day. And the assessments that they're doing are much more actionable and where they're able to really focus in on what that child needs right now. So the English language proficiency assessments in California, there's two. The initial is given within 30 days of a student enrolling. And so this is very important just to capture sort of where they're at. So you can see from 1920, the metric there that almost 41% were proficient coming in, initial fluent English proficient, IFEP.
It's just huge.
And so, you know, then this really helps our intervention team and our English language learner teacher team understand who is going to need enhanced support and who, you know, may not need as much support. And then for last year, 2021, you know, the numbers are pretty similar. And this was actually super exciting. These children were actually the first kids that we had in-person contact with. We set up our tents outside of the old district office, and Ms. Kastner, Ms. Eiler masked up, you know, 10 layers of masks, and the kiddos came and we were able to get them assessed. It was, we were really proud of the whole team, including the families, for helping us accomplish that under challenging circumstances. So then of course in the spring, and we have it coming up now, we're actually scheduling with our team for probably, you know, sort of kind of March, April, May-ish, school by school, where we give the summative LPAC. So that's the more of the end of year assessment, and there's the 4 levels. From level 1 minimally developed to level 4 well developed. And we see that 2 years ago that was about 19%, and then last year about 26%. And again, you know, it's hard to establish set cohorts because sometimes children may graduate out, other children are joining us, but this is all key information. And the thing that's exciting too is beyond Ms. Eiler and Ms. Kastner, we now have Ms. Marcucci, Mr. Jameson, and Mr. Powell. Ms. Marcucci at Manor, Mr. Powell, Mr. Jameson at Whitehill. And they're now part of the EL teaching team. Mr. Jameson, Mr. Powell at Whitehill each have 0.2 of their FTE assignment to English language learner support and teaching. And so our team went from 2 to 5 now, which is very exciting. And so they're getting together to really not only get trained on administering these exams, but also to really talk about the methodology for how we're supporting kids. In fact, we're also going to be talking with other school districts about best practices, curricula, etc. So moving on to attendance rates, this is kind of a jump. So, you know, the 1920, 96.2 attendance rate, and then this current year is, you know, marginally lower, which is very encouraging overall. And also too, I just want to acknowledge all of our site administrative assistants who are working really hard with families and with staff to get together independent study packets, because again, we know that many children, either for preventive measures or because they've had to quarantine, are having to miss some stretches of school. We're able to keep them you know, on the daily attendance sheets when they're under independent study for 3 days or more, per the new board policy. And so that's an extra layer of work that they're doing, and they're just doing a really tremendous job of that. So obviously we're always wanting to see attendance getting as close to 100% as possible, but this is very strong. The next for suspension rate, so the California dashboard last reported on 1920 last year, you know, just not really actionable data to really report, given that many places had no students present at all. And I do want to actually point out though that this, I apologize for the mistake. In blue it should be 2021. So our suspension rate for the district for 1920 was 1.7%. It was when we pulled data from our system, that was 18 students. A number of those students have multiple suspensions. One of those students is actually not in our school district, but placed in another program and had a suspension. And then last year, again, you know, we had the phased return. 3 students were suspended total last year, and they were all in May or June. So things started to heat up a little bit in the spring when kids were kind of back. And so again, it's kind of hard to really compare. And again, that should be 2021. I apologize for that. And then the next slide will show the dashboard from 1920. So again, our overall the decline from the year prior puts us in the green, which is positive. Compared to the state. Again, not that we're into comparisons. And I will say too, it's really important to note that, you know, having been a site administrator myself for 12 some odd years at the high school level, middle school level, so much positive work has been done to alternatives to suspension. Things that even when I started in 2008 at Archie, they were just kind of automatic, like that's an automatic 3-day suspension, you know, automatic this or that. You know, we realized that if the point is to support children, if the point is to help educate them and not have them sitting at home, where often the problem may lie, that might be the source of the issue. So we're not helping them turn it around by taking them away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So really what suspensions are getting to are those cases where truly safety is really compromised. Something violent in nature, something that might involve dangerous object or weapon or some other thing that where it's truly related to danger. But you know, our White Hill team has done so much work over the last few years on restorative justice practices, on having students meet with counseling, on having them do in-office removals where they're still at the school site, they're still able to get support, meet with their teachers. They may not be in class, but they're still there at the school site. So this is something that we as a district, and I think more broadly as educators, should feel really great about, because we don't measure how great we are and how tough we are based on, you know, the number of kids we suspend. We want to really help them in as proactive and preventative a way as possible.
Great, thanks,
Thank you.
All right, so moving to our MAP level data, so kind of honing in on skills. We took some time doing an analysis of our F&P scores, and the 2019 and 2021, what we're comparing is the same timing, which is around in mid-November, at the end of T1 by grade level. So the green is benchmark, anything above the green, and the whatever color that is, aqua or something in blue, would be above benchmark. and then moving the other direction. And you can see our 2019 and 2021 for our, and this is not cohort, it's not the same group of students, right? Is pretty similar here. And very similar when you get to second grade.
Yeah.
And then third grade, again, very similar. Fourth grade, we have more kids at benchmark this year than we did in 2019.
Yeah.
And then fifth grade, slight change the other direction. But again, what this shows when we wonder about potential learning loss, you know, how are our kids reading? Pretty important skill, something that we think about a lot and work on a lot. And generally speaking, this local assessment where to do the FNP, teachers are sitting one-on-one with a child and listening to them read, and then, you know, running through their assessment procedure around that to determine their reading level, and their level is given a letter. And what we're finding is that our kids are doing really well. Most of our kids are at benchmark or above, and we're not seeing that there's a slip really there. So that's encouraging. And more, that gives us more information about our kids probably than the CASP scores do. Only in one area, but it's really clear information. And then going down to the street level, which we don't have a lot here that we're presenting, but just to recognize all the systems that we have in place. These are examples from different sites of different tracking of how students are doing, and what you can see in them is that we're progress monitoring, that we're looking at our kids that we may be concerned about and checking where they are, and then providing instruction and intervention and support, and then checking back in to see how are we doing now? Are we progressing? Do we need to try something different? And this is much more helpful in that way. And all of these systems that are in place have an asset-based focus. The first thing that we do when we have a student study team or we sit down in an IST to talk about kids is we say, what are the strengths of this child? What does this child have that they're able to contribute? And so really important there. And that is an update. Oh, and then next steps. And so we will be planning to practice with those interim assessments, and also because those interim assessments are set up to give us data about kids. Yeah. And so they're a free assessment system, basically. And you can do a lot of analysis with the data in them. So that's one piece. We are deep into, and I'm sure Eric will be bringing us a presentation here soon on it, our MTSS plan, and aligning all of our data collection systems and processes, and that all connects with all of this. We're really interested in expanding on the metrics that determine success, and particularly at that street level. And that does look like reaching out and talking with families, talking particularly with families of students. Sometimes we talk about our unduplicated students, but kids that have bigger challenges and maybe struggling more, and finding out where they are and what they need, and what support needs to look like. And that is our presentation on our mid-year LCAP report. So any questions or thoughts?
Can I ask a question about your FNP?
Yep.
So I know you wouldn't be able to present that to us because your cohort would be too small, but do you have, are you looking into those FNP score with only a subset of those students with higher needs, or like, you know, English learners? And I know you wouldn't have enough to present them to us, but have you seen a different pattern in terms of, like, here we say there is not much of a reading loss, but if you look into those subgroup students, do you see a little bit of a different pattern? Have they lost more?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes. And what we do is we have a data collection system that's internal, where we're tracking all of that
Yeah.
and we're looking to see how are these things lining up. But we're also seeing an acceleration of progress. And so we're more at the beginning. We were seeing some gaps. We're seeing some closing of those gaps in some cases. And again, we're not talking about a tremendously high number of students, and that is to our advantage because we can really focus in on the kids that need that additional support and figure out how we can provide that.
Got it, thank you.
I had a question about how a couple of systems integrate. So English language learner support systems and the MTSS and the ISTs and the SSTs. And how does the English language learner supports fit in with the MTSS work that we're doing?
It's interesting because some of our intervention teachers are also English language support teachers, and there is a lot of overlap, and sometimes what a kid who is an English language learner needs is to be in an intervention support group with other kids who are not English language learners.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of crossover there in terms of those processes. But you do have different, and Eric, feel free to weigh in, but you're
I've heard the
working with
reverse
different
too,
assessments.
and I've heard the reverse too, that sometimes students get put in an intervention when it's really a language issue and it's a language support issue, not another. So I was just wondering how
And
they
it
talk to
depends
each other.
on what it is. What we want to do is we want to not generalize,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
rather be very specific about what kids need, because if it's an issue around academic language, that can be good for a wide array of students, whether it's because English is their second language, or there's a processing issue, or there's just, a delay in some way. And so finding the ways to group kids and meet their needs. But I don't know, Eric, if you wanted to add anything.
I think that's well said, that there's different models, and I've worked with them both where you have a standalone class, let's say at the secondary level. So students take a period of EL support. And then there's also the more push and pull out model where it's not a standalone class and the teacher or teachers go and work with those students either individually or groups, sometimes in maybe their language arts class or their social studies class or wherever it is they need the most support. That can also look like them collaborating with the teacher ahead of time to front load vocabulary, to scaffold kind of what the lesson's going to be about, help them with those language prompts and how they can participate, engage more, learning how to, have discussions in small scaffolded groups before it's a group of 24 to 30. So, we've had both models. And I think that, it really does boil down to making sure we're getting to the needs of the individual. Making sure that, just like we do in special education, that we're removing as many obstacles as possible, giving them maximum access to the general education curriculum. Because it's remembered that we also learn in context, and I'm a former language teacher. So when your students are in their classes, there's rich language there, and that's powerful. But we also want to make sure that they're not drowning, that they have the scaffolds and supports in place to be able to access to have that support. I mean, especially as you're getting into classes like science, like math, where vocabulary also becomes really important, and sometimes can be really challenging. So we're going to again be continuing to really assess and analyze what the individual kids need, and also to just per the conversation about how does it connect with MTSS. I think that it's also making sure that we're not just tracking their progress in acquiring English, but also making sure that that's opening that door to having greater success across the board academically and otherwise.
And that ties completely in with the social emotional aspects of this and feelings of inclusion. This week at our grade level meeting, we were doing some of the work around our book bundles, and the fourth grade had read a book called Separate Not Equal. And the book is written in both English and Spanish. And a lot of the teachers reported having their second language, their Spanish speaking kids read the Spanish part to the class and talked about it being this wonderful moment where they got to showcase this superpower of theirs, right? And all of the other kids could see that. And that makes a difference as well in terms of kids' success, because when they feel that they're integrated and they matter and that they are, you know, smart and brilliant and fabulous, they're going to do a lot better.
I definitely really appreciated the sharing the framework there of the satellite and the map and the data. I've been looking at lots of data this week on statewide comparisons and Bay Areas and stuff like that, and I think it is definitely not to compare anything, but just to have that inquiry conversation around trend lines and understanding kind of what's happening to everybody from COVID, and then what's happening uniquely in our district, like are there things that are happening, you know, using it as an inquiry at that high level, but really looking at the mid-level and the low level as the support tools. So that's a really helpful framework. I appreciate framing this conversation in that way. Is great. How much exposure do you think parents and our community around the schools have to the MTSS work? Any at all? Just because I'm trying to think about how we connect the way that we allocate budgets and then the teachers see it in using it with the kids, but I'm wondering how much the parents see it, because it feels like it might be a behind the scenes kind of thing.
I think right now we're still in refinement and development, and so we've done one update in our RVSD updates that come out once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And continuing to have meetings where we're refining it. So I think when we have more of our product together, which we talked yesterday at our administrative team meeting about our next steps, which we have a meeting this Thursday. And so I think we'll see another update in the next updates. And also just going back to everything that we're doing this year is around 3 priorities. So whenever I talk about the priorities, it's talked about in terms of our equity work, our MTSS, and our health and safety, with the umbrella of all of that, which is our sound finance. And so that is where all of our priorities are intertwined and interconnected. And so all of the elements are focused on every single student, regardless of their background, race, culture, and the like. And so ensuring that all of our students are going to be making progress, and we're focusing on their individual needs. So I'd say, to answer your question, Shelley, not a lot yet.
Okay.
But I think it'll become more apparent as we get further along in the refinement of our system itself.
Got it.
But I think where individual parents are definitely learning and hearing from their school site when their children are in intervention, or they have any areas of concern that's affecting their progress in school, whether it's social, emotional, or academic related. So individual parents are definitely hearing it more than our general population of parents and guardians.
Rachel,
did you have anything to add to that, Eric? Because maybe
it's such a good question, but I think that really what MTSS is, and I think the danger is always with titles that a lot of districts talk about it, and maybe have made some provisional moves to sort of formalize, but it's still a series of, let's say, uncoordinated efforts, like well-intended. So really MTSS is the fabric woven. It's really a language, a common language and set of commitments by which we collectively operate. And what we've already determined in a strength-based model over the last 4 months of us meeting, and we knew it last year too, we're doing lots of things that are best practices when it comes to the idea of MTSS, not just in terms of academic intervention, but also social, emotional, behavioral intervention and support. And so that's great. The question is, how do we ensure that that's happening in a cohesive fashion across 5 schools and 4 elementaries that feed to the same middle school? How are those aligning? How are we ensuring that we're also pausing to reflect on their efficacy? Because that's also another thing too that can typically be the challenge for any school system is being able to create enough space to really look at the practices, look at the student data to refine. So our schools are working incredibly hard, and honestly, I think that this process in the end will help us work a little less hard, because we're gonna, instead of feeling like we're having to reinvent the wheel, we're working cohesively, we're partnering with each other. Our schools are not islands, and especially when it comes to the 5th to 6th grade transition, there's just going to be a lot more knowledge that is shared and coordinated, so that there's a lot more understanding. Anyway, so yeah, I think that, and I think that how we communicate that to our community will ultimately really reflect what the LCAP is communicating, you know, in its own way.
Great.
Thank you.
Rachel, did you have anything?
The only question I had was just a curiosity thing about, like, I know we did helped I think UCSF with their dyslexia decoder or their assessment. Will that be worked into this at some point?
Well, so that's just one example of some exciting partnerships that help enhance. Like, do we have screeners? Are there different ways that we're looking at literacy? Yes. But is it universal? Are we utilizing it across the board for every K1 student? No. Not at least not as it pertains to dyslexia in a specific way. And so, because certainly we do support students with dyslexia, and we have for years and years. But what's exciting about this is it'll be another tool that will be one of those universal supports. Our wellness coordinator, Autumn Arbery at Whitehill, is talking with County Office of Education about piloting some different screener vehicles that again are more strength-based, asset-based, because we want to also do that on the wellness front, on the in terms of assessing how our students are doing mentally, emotionally. So those things all then become a part of that fabric. Those become a part of the experience that every kid is going to have being in our district. And then that guides the next steps. Who needs some additional help, to what degree?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. When,
Public comment.
oh, we don't have any, just, so anybody who's listening here, we don't have, we've got one person in the audience, so we won't have to, wave your hand if you want to do public comment, and we will definitely come back after public comment. So we don't have any public comment on this. And it was, when does the LCAP come back or not? What's the pattern?
We'll have it'll come back in 2 phases. We'll have one at our end of May, and I forget the meeting date off the top of my head, and then June 1st.
Okay.
So we'll have a May meeting in June. Well, actually, are we doing it on the 14th? Probably on the 14th this year, right? Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll have it at the end of May, and then June 14th. It has to be a 2-step process,
And it mirrors the budget.
With the budget.
And it goes on in the budget. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a companion.
Yeah. All right.
Best friend.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you very much for that update. It's really good to hear. All right, we are moving on to item number F3, which is a recommended approval of a J13A waiver for school closure at Whitehill Middle School on Monday, October 25th, which we all remember, which was the day of flooding. So tell us about this waiver.
So this is a formalized process,
Yeah.
and so we're requesting that the state waive that day.
Yeah.
And the actual process is once, hopefully the governing board approves it this evening, we would have you sign next to your name, and we would then submit that to the County Office of Education. The County Office of Education then has to approve it, and they would then send it on to the state for their formal approval as well. And in talking to the County Office of Education, they seemed assured that it would be approved every step of the way.
Yeah.
So we're going ahead and submitting it.
So this is a waiver, so we don't have to like add it at the end of the school year.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so we don't have to use one of our already calendared dates
Gotcha.
to extend the school year for our White Hills students.
So we're hoping it gets approved every step of the way.
Do you know the timeline on when they'd be heard back on this?
You would normally expect to get it sometime at the end of the spring, so it would be like last minute, probably.
I think they said late April, May
Yeah.
would be when they hope to be able to reply. And so hopefully, keep your fingers crossed.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll be able to
Right,
submit it to
Karen?
the county. The county knows it's coming. They've taken a look at it already, and
Great.
so we'll get everything to them tomorrow, pending approval this evening, and start that process.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I don't believe we have any public comment on this item either. So, any other questions or?
Now, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go
I
ahead.
was looking at Rachel. I'm making a motion to recommend the approval of the J13A waiver for school closure at White Hill Middle School on Monday, October 25, 2021, due to the flooding.
I'll go ahead and second that for you.
All right. Second, motion and a second, we'll do a vote. Marie?
Aye.
Shelley, aye.
Rachel, aye.
And Rachel, aye.
And if I could just ask if you could sign it this evening?
Yes.
Yes.
And
That
all,
way you don't have to come back.
and all three of us sign,
Yes.
And there's 3 copies.
and there's
And
three
there's 3
copies.
copies.
Okay.
Make
Then
sure we do that.
Keep
no?
it moving.
Yes.
Thank you for that notice. All right, F4, this is an update on our community funded status for next year. Review of the questions, any outstanding issues. So who's doing the presentation or?
Well, I think I'll start it off and then more intended for discussion tonight to see. We've had, this is our 3rd board meeting now in which we have talked about our moving into community funded status next year and also what the impact on our district will be, not in 22-23 next school year, but in 23-24 with in lieu property taxes. And staff as well as trustees have had a lot of questions, like what does it mean? How do we make sure that we understand exactly what we're moving forward into, especially because as we're planning our budget, and our budget is what, our LCAP is what drives our budget, is to ensure that we have, we know what kind of money that we're looking at for our own students as well as what we might have to give away through in lieu property taxes. And so the FAQs, frequently asked questions, have been developed to kind of help also ensure that our community, we put these out last Thursday in our RVSD updates. And tonight, as you might remember in reading, one of our family members, our community members, our parents, in reviewing did notice like that will be an impact on the district and what does it mean and what do we know? And they had read an article in the Point Reyes Light, which I think is what also sparked their interest. So as much as we're having our board meetings and also putting information out into our RVSD updates, it's not everybody accesses information the same way. And so we're hoping though that this FAQ, which also lives on our district website.
Yeah.
So it will serve as a place that any person who at all would like to understand. Of course, we're happy to answer any questions at the same time, but to make sure that we understand. So tonight is to just kind of review the FAQs, see if there are any questions around them, and then also if there may be additional questions, because sometimes what happens is when you answer one question, it helps to encourage others that might come up that you didn't anticipate from the start. And so just in general, any questions? Or Chris, did you have anything you wanted to?
Just that I would be updating our budget
Exactly.
at second interim,
Yeah.
which would be at the 8th of March. I think
Yeah,
is
March
the
8th
date.
is coming, yeah.
Which is the second meeting in March. And there's a number of factors that will have changed based upon the data that has come out since the January governor's budget proposal, as well as other factors that we've received. So the data that is in the FAQs may be slightly changed, but it doesn't change the whole picture. We still will be entering community-funded status.
Well, yeah, I have a couple of questions. Let's say a couple of comments. First of all, I really like very much that you can travel with this document. I already sent it to 2 people who were asking me, where do we find enough information? And the last 2 times we had a long PowerPoint presentation that for someone who was not familiar with the topic would have been way too much. And I had questions about it, and since then I sent that, and I'm like, and that's it. And so I would try to be careful about transforming that into another 23 questions, and because I think it's actually not serving the purpose, which is let's keep it simple, so that we can, it can travel on its own. So first of all, kudos to that, because I think this is the right format, and maybe you could advertise the next version of it that will come soon enough in a month. This way it will be even more solid, because I'm sure right now you're like, oh, I would like to update this one. So maybe next version of it, you might even want to attach it on its own to one of your newsletter, because I think that is going to become your little, the cheat sheet that I think would like to not expand to 23 questions, but to keep it to 7 and to kind of summarize it there.
Yeah.
So I like that very much. I think this is easier for someone who doesn't know what's going on to digest through that. So start
Because
there.
it's very complicated. And as we're learning all about it, it's harder, I think, for community members to fully understand. So that was the purpose of this,
Correct.
is to try to help make it as clear as possible. And it is good news, great news on the one hand, because it will mean some additional money for Ross Valley, but there are so many moving parts as to what we have to pay attention to related to staying in community-funded status.
Yep.
Reserves, and making sure that because the way that the money's going to come in is different than it has previously, and then also having it go out, and then the additional time now that where Chris has been able to focus solely on our budget and our district and any communications that need to happen around that. It's also now taking on ensuring that we're paying out the in lieu property taxes that have to be paid directly. And so that's we have to be able to manage that too as the staff in the district office, and ensure that the timing of everything is going to be manageable and doable for Chris and anyone in his department. So any questions that arose, like anything in particular in the FAQs that help, like, because some of the questions that we didn't have answers to at the last board meeting, we were able to get the information in here. So were they all clear, helpful?
They were a little discouraging, some of them, but yes, they were clear.
So again?
A little discouraging, some of them, but they were clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts as to what holds you in community-funded status and what might have us pop out again.
And I think what the part that I like very much is this question mark around 26, 27, because we just don't know, and there is no need to put too much in there until we really unpack, and it's going to take you a little while to understand it all, and even to us as trustees to understand, and you need to understand it first, Grace. And the first time we talked about coming in and out, the flip-flopping between the two models, if you end up not doing that, which I don't know, you are going to see next time, it is a very different ball game, going in and out or staying in community funded. So I'm thinking, I'm sure you want, once you know a little bit more, If you stay in community funded a little bit deeper, or like at least 2 to 3 years, the ball game is very different from flip-flopping between one and the two. This is the one that I was thinking was the most scary one, to be honest, Grace. And I was thinking it's hard to explain and to understand from a community because it's really a cash flow nightmare. And not like, I wouldn't want everybody to be worried about cash flow. I want people to be knowing that you know about how to manage cash flow. And the community should know that here, we know it's complicated and explain the concept, you know what I'm saying, but without people being constantly like, can you pay, are you going to be able to pay the salaries at the end of next month? There are systems in place so that you can manage, but I think this is doing a job enough at a high level to see that there is a big question mark. We're not yet there. We don't even know if it will be community funded or whatever at that time, not yet. And then give us some space so we figure it out. Because I think this is what I want you to do is figure it out, not now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's just the urgency to figure out all right now. It's a little bit premature.
And it does look like, unlike when we very, very first learned of this, that there was more of a chance of flip-flopping, but it sounds like, directionally speaking, because we don't have all the final, but directionally speaking from the governor's revise and some of the indications for next year and beyond, that there's less of a chance that we're going to flip-flop, at least in the first 3 years or so, correct?
That's correct.
Directionally.
And maybe even in 1 month, it's too early to know that. Maybe you would want to delay that conversation to when you do the budget.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think there is no rush to have the conversation if you're not ready to have it.
Well, and I'll be taking a look again, going into a deeper dive at all of the different factors. Because there's things that I need to look at. What is, in terms of transitional kindergarten, the expansion of that program, what is the impact upon our attendance with that? What is the impact upon our attendance just in general when looking at a cohort as you move them forward? Are we dropping? Are we increasing our students based upon the TK? So you have to take a look at all of that, and then you have to look at the COLA, the cost of living adjustment that is coming from the state. The number that the governor put out isn't final. That will change. It's not a question of if, it
will change.
And at the time that he put it out, there were 2 factors that go into making that number that were not known. And that happens every year. And one of those 2 factors is now known, and it looks like that, right now they're saying that COLA could go up. And so what does that look like?
Right.
We won't be putting that into our second interim budget because it's not finalized.
It's too early.
We would be looking at just what the governor has put in. But I think it's important to understand what does that impact have on us. We've also seen a projection for our property tax base, what that looks like for next year. And that is what came in substantially higher than what we had anticipated. We were looking at something in the 3% range, and it's come in over 6.5%. That has a multi-year impact because that's your new base each year. So that now becomes
compounds.
Yes, it compounds. And so looking at that and then taking a deeper dive into what is our property tax base increase history been?
Yeah.
Are we higher than the local average? Are we lower than the local average? Are we at the local average? And then what does that look like? Because traditionally, when you're a state aid funded district, you don't really care what your property tax base is because the state is going to give you, they're going to backfill the other side. So it's, from that perspective, it's just a cash flow issue, which is an issue sitting at my desk only. To the general public, as you were mentioning, it doesn't matter to the general public. And so, those are all the factors that we'll be taking a look at, and we'll be taking a deeper dive into it as we move forward in the next month within our budget.
For the March, and I think our trick, as you just mentioned, is going to be to continue to keep this at a summarized high
Yeah.
level and not run down too many rabbit holes.
Correct. Because otherwise it's too
Because
much.
otherwise it gets too complicated. And
Something
we can leave all the details, like, click on our meetings and
Click
watch
there.
the details. Once you've read this, if you wanna dive in deeper, then we've got all of the recordings here, so.
And-
Keep
yeah,
it
and-
super simple.
And probably, Chris, what would be good is to have a date and a revision on that one, because this is as good as the information that we know right now. The more I'm thinking about it, a few of us are going to March 17 symposium in Sacramento to understand more about all of that. I'm sure coming back from that, plus doing your second interim, you would be probably having
good
some
idea.
more content there. So let's put a date this
Revision
way.
dates on each one, yeah.
Yeah,
Good idea.
because this way people look at it and say, hey, you didn't say that, but yeah, as of February 8th, Kelly's birthday, that's what we knew at that time. Well, in the same way as your budget, because this way that covers us a little bit, because I don't think we want to go too much more detail in writing. You know what I'm saying? If someone needs more than that, they need to come and meet with you. Otherwise, you would be spending a PhD essay with
a book
on something that you could be writing 20 pages of something that is very complex and only a conversation, or kind of almost as I'm doing myself as I'm in the finance world. I like going and triggering that Excel spreadsheet to understand the numbers, but that's not what I want you to do in a 20-page document. If someone wants to go in the detail of an Excel spreadsheet, then that's an individual effort. You shouldn't be doing much. I think much deep, much. Yeah, I think this is great level.
Great.
Don't go more than that. Otherwise, we are giving almost too much of. This is taking too much of your time. You know what I'm saying, of writing things versus explaining them in another working session. If people want a working session, then we could have another working session. You know?
Absolutely.
Have parents been asking for more information about that? That was one of the questions I had.
Yeah.
Have people been asking?
People been asking.
Have the community?
I don't think.
No.
I think most people are still at the higher understanding.
That's enough.
For that, I have to say thank you, because the questions I have gotten, I've been able to answer, given the information we've had at our meetings, so thank you.
Okay. So this is
good.
That means this is the right level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have anything else? Anything?
I had one more question. So with the base coming in higher for what you just got back from the county for our property tax base, does that push off that fiscal cliff further, or does that eliminate it, or what does it look like as far as that situation goes?
You still have a fiscal cliff,
Yeah.
it just delays.
Okay. So it
And
pushes it.
and slows it down a little bit, so we definitely need to look at that, and that's gonna be part of our budget presentation as we move into the second interim. I've been working on that part of it. I need to make sure that I properly explain that, because it does change the factors. It doesn't change what happens, and there's a slide that you see that, it's actually question number 2, where if you look at that particular, the second graph, you actually see where it looks, you see the revenues. All it does is kind of push off the issues. They still mirror it.
Yes, okay.
Is
Actually,
it this one?
It's that one,
here,
yeah.
Okay.
Let me pull it out.
Yeah, if you could.
The one with the question mark. Yeah.
One more down.
Two more.
2 more. Right.
Yes.
One with the question mark. So as you
Yeah.
look at that, the difference between these two, one is the LCFF revenues and the other is the property taxes. And really what you see is they're not exactly the same, but they mirror each other.
Yeah.
And so that's the important thing to note.
And one happens 1 year earlier than the late. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same trajectory, the same shape of the graph. They just shift.
Pushes it
One shifts over a year.
So it won't eliminate the issue wholly, but it's something we have to look at, and I will be trying to explain that much clearer. And I'm also going to try and explain clearer the different factors that affect them.
And we still need to be planning for that, because we certainly wouldn't want to get into a year where we have to, as we've seen, heard in the news, where other districts might need to make some massive radical changes. And we want to be planning for that and be, in order to be fiscally sound.
Yeah.
and responsive to our students' needs, but also within the budget that we have. So if there's nothing more, then we probably won't see this for a while.
Yeah.
It'll now start to show up through the budget updates and
Correct.
first interim, second interim budget conversations. It'll be happening back there again. But of course, if anything more is learned, then at any future meeting and it doesn't have one of those budget-related specific items on it, then we'll of course bring it back at any time.
Great.
Yeah, again, I really like this chart very much, the one with the question mark. I think it tells so many different interesting good story here. Maybe this is the one slide. This is the one slide that I would be interested in seeing after you do your second interim to see, hey, has that changed? Because of the rest, we don't necessarily have to update that, but that would be an interesting one to look at.
See if it moves.
Just it will move for sure, and how much it moves, you put them on top of each other, and that would probably be a good. I would like to see that. That would be a good one, because I think this is very understandable and it tells the story quite well. Thank you.
So I think what we'll do too is let's pull this down and put a date on it.
Yeah,
and that way
the date. I thought about it.
Snapshot it. That's
As I was talking about it, I'm like, put a date on it, because this way you're stamped.
Yeah.
It's in the title of the item, but it's not in the document itself. Yeah. So we'll make sure we put that on the document itself.
That would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay. Moving on to the recommended direction of RVSD staff to learn more about participating in joint litigation, seeking damages related to the impact of national opioid epidemic.
All right, and this has a lot of information in here, a lot of background in terms of the history and kind of the really grand picture around the opioid epidemic and its impact on schools. So what I'd like to do is, I can describe it, some here too, but basically with the opioid epidemic, that we do believe as staff that it is incumbent upon us as educators to help ensure that if there's anything that impacts our students, their education, which the epidemic itself, the opioid epidemic itself does have an impact. If and when we have students who are products of any parent who might have had an addiction, the impact to their education. It can increase special education costs, their need for additional services. And we also believe that we would like to stand with other districts who are maybe larger, more urban, where this might be much more impactful. But it's not unlike the action that the board took, I think it was in June 2019 maybe,
Prior board,
related to Juul. And so if we were to join on to this lawsuit, then there would be nothing that the district would be putting forth, and it wouldn't put us in any kind of an area where we would have expend any money. So Fagan Friedman, which is one of our law firms, has joined together with the France law firm, who is leading, and the France law firm also led the lawsuit related to the Juul manufacturer. And so only if we do recover any kind of monetary payments, then of course there would be a fraction of that would be going to pay the law firms for it. But there's no harm to the district, and just want to see if you have any questions, and also to be able to provide me direction to move forward, and we can then be in contact with the law firm. This isn't a part tonight where it's moving forward. There are any resolutions like we had ready at the time with the Juul litigation. This is just being able to say that yes, the Ross Valley School District is interested in learning more and potentially becoming part. And if there is at any point where there is any action that the board needs to take, like to take a resolution or just sign on to a legal action, then of course we would bring it back.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, so the next step would be to have the actual, whatever the litigation is, that if we were signing on to it, we would have a documentation of that and a resolution for action to sign on to that as the next step. But that's not what we're, tonight we're just saying.
Just getting the background to it.
Would be like want to find out more and see what would be involved so that we could take action if we wanted.
Oh, I definitely would like to hear more.
Yeah.
Is it of interest to you then to go ahead and move forward and learn
It is,
more?
but so it's all contingency basis if we ever get involved with it, but for right now, how, it's his 1 to 2 hours of your guys' time
Yes,
to complete it.
that would
Okay.
be completing a survey,
Okay.
yeah. That's where we would be right now.
That would make sense
Okay.
to go ahead and move
I'm
forward.
fair on
So it's
that.
moving forward with the survey and then staying in touch to know what
Exactly.
next action.
Yes.
Providing you updates with
Yes.
where this action may be
Yes,
headed, and then any additional action, or not additional, any action the district board would need to take related to getting onto a lawsuit.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have any questions, Rach?
Do you, the Jewel one, did that ever settle? Do you know like how long timeline-wise?
I think it's still in process,
Okay,
and
so
I
it's
think
still
it's gonna be.
I was gonna say it's a long
yeah,
game.
It's gonna be quite a while.
Many. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right then.
We did some work on that.
3 boards down the road that
Yeah.
we'll see any.
Like, are we making
Oh, that's
decisions
right,
for
we
like
did do some
10 years
work on
from now?
that, yeah.
I did put together quite a bit of information at one point last year for that.
Working
Trying to think if I'm like committing you to know
Well, yeah.
like a couple weeks of work or something.
Well, honestly, there were a lot of questions in putting together documents for the Jewel, but it was just a matter of hunting the information down. I don't think it took weeks, but
Okay.
it took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's support
For the,
for
yes,
moving forward
for the good of all.
and then
Yeah.
bringing it back.
Great,
if
thank
there's
you very
more
much.
Yes.
action needed.
Please move forward.
Appreciate it.
All right. That brings us to item G, our consent actions. Thank you for all the updates and presentations. Any questions on any consent items from the trustees? Yes.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to point out to my fellow trustees that in this consent action, there is this excellent little writing. And Chris is like, yeah. There is an action, there is an action here, a letter that comes from Mary Jane that's is giving positive certification to the financial statement prepared by Chris, and I just want to give kudos to Chris again on that one, and I encourage everybody, the public, if they want to read like 3 pages on our financials about what's really going on. This is a very succinct read from MCOE about the financials of West Valley School District. So I like recommending this reading because it's independent. It's not from ourselves,
Right.
and so this is something I would be looking to, like if I was looking into a district. So
Yeah.
I just want to point out that part of what we are approving today is actually an important piece of content. I want
That's good.
to get this one on top of your list.
And this is something that the Marin County Office of Education does with every single school district.
Correct.
So if anyone's ever interested in looking into the
The full collection of all of that.
and they could, that every district gets one of these.
Correct.
Which is that.
And they matter a lot. So
Great, thanks.
for people who do the work.
This is something that actually all counties do for every
Yeah.
district.
Yes,
and
it's one of the
It's-
roles that county offices do for.
It's part of their AB 1200 oversight.
Correct. This is it's buried in consent action, but I'm putting it on top
Thank
of the
you.
list. And with that, I'm making a motion.
Okay.
If there is any other question on the consent action or any comment on any question on other.
I'm good with all of them.
Is it okay for me to move forward?
No public comment?
Oh,
Any
and
public
no public
comment?
comments? No public
Gosh,
comments.
just.
Yeah.
So I'm
Gonna go for it again.
I'm making a motion to approve the all consent actions
Okay,
in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I'll go ahead and second this time. Woohoo! And we'll go ahead and do it with a vote. All right, Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye.
Rachel, I.
All right. Consent actions are approved. And we are on to board business, item H. So committee updates and reports from trustees.
I have a report.
Do we have
The,
any JLAC?
So JLAC is tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.
Oh,
yes. It's a long week. So tomorrow
It's gonna be a
morning.
long meeting tomorrow too.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
the
but-
legislative
Mhm.
update.
It's the
Meet the
this
list.
is, exactly this is Sacramento from your Zoom, right? It's like Sacramento by Zoom. And no matter what, because I think they are redoing half of the Capitol in Sacramento, even if it was not Zoom, we wouldn't have been able to go there because I think they all moved into smaller offices. So no matter what.
Action Day, that's what it's called, Legislative Action Day.
Exactly. So I will report back next time, but definitely tomorrow morning. I know for sure it's going to be 2.5 hours of taking crazy notes because it is historically a meeting full of content. So let's keep on going so we can have a good night of people.
I'll probably see you there because I think I'm going to join you too on that.
Yeah, it's open. It's open to everybody. Yeah. It's last time.
Something will work. I might be there too. So I went to the Yes Board meeting last week. The financial summary is that they are at $730,000 and change for the year so far, which is 82% of their annual goal of $889,000. It's about a 25% reduction from their 2018 goal, but still they're at 82%, so they're happy. They've made their payment to the Ross Valley School District last week, so they're up on their payments. There were some numbers overall for participation and family donations. And right now, we're at 44% district-wide. And January 2018, which is the last regular year that we had to compare to, is at 46%. So we're just a smidge off of what we were at before. So that's good news. Things are kind of slowly returning back to normal. I think having classes in person has been a huge improvement for that. They have a fundraising participation challenge beginning March 28th, and so Mike's Bikes is donating another mountain bike as an incentive for participation. So that is messaging will be going out for that shortly. Theater is rocking and rolling. Wade Thomas has the first production actually this weekend. So they are selling tickets to a full audience and abiding by all county health guidelines. The productions are being filmed. I believe they're being streamed as well, but I don't have specific information on that. The White Hill Spring Musical registration is open, and so that's
speed up.
Yeah,
it's for.
This week has been really busy at school. The notifications are going out to like the tech crew and things like that. They're doing Bye Bye Birdies this year. Art, there is an art exhibit right now at the Fairfax Library. It goes through March 3rd. So there are roughly 8 pieces of art from each school on display. It's got the students' names on it and the grade and the school that they come from, but they're all throughout the library. So I'd encourage people to take a look at those. I went and looked at them this weekend. It was kind of fun looking and seeing kids' names that I recognized. There is a new interview with art teacher Jasmine Gavin on the Yes website, so I would tell people to go listen to that too. Just get a feel for what our art teachers do and why and how passionate they are for their work. Then let's see, there are the 2 art teachers for the elementary are both going to the National Art Educator Convention in New York City, and there's an event focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion as well as social learning. And I know that they've put a big emphasis on that in the classrooms this year. So it's kind of nice to see them reinforcing that with the continuing education work they're doing. At White Hill, they are back in their classrooms and they're happy. There's lots of different art going on in the various classrooms. The 6th graders in enrichment are working on pop art and mixed media. Digital arts are finishing up poster designs for safe routes to school. Studio art is doing fiber arts and they're going to be doing painting next. The ceramics kids are doing free choice slab building assignments right now. And the graphic kids are working on mixed media color theory. And let's see, at elementary level, they're working on a winter unit theme in the kindergarten and 1st grade. There's fiber arts and weaving that they're working on in other grades. And there's found object art, there's stuffed fiber arts. They're going to be doing ceramics soon at all the sites, so that's what they've got going on in elementary. And music, it's kind of a big month for music. There's actually a choir performance with the 5th graders and the 6th through 8th graders. Orchestra, and this is at White Hill, and orchestra is February 9th, and so those are the strings, and that's the 5th graders and the 6th to 8th. And then band is the week after on the 16th, and that's jazz band and the concert band, and the symphonic band as well as the fifth graders. So it's kind of nice that the fifth graders are going to have a chance to perform and see White Hill before they actually will step on the campus and as sixth graders. So it's kind of a nice thing. And then last was the Battle of the Bands. They're still planning for that, and that is happening in March. And if anyone's interested in volunteering, they were happy to have volunteers.
Thank you.
I showed up late because of the Archie Williams thing for ninth grade. But I think that was most of it.
Thank you. My only update is I attended, I think you might have as well, the webinar, the parent webinar on the raising an anti-racist.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
That's part of all of the equity work, and I'm imagining we might have an update, so I'll let you all. But it was really well attended, over 100 people. 138 people, really well attended. I was glad to see it in the update, the information on it with the link and the video, so if people wanted to watch it afterwards. I thought it was really well done, and enjoyed the conversation afterward, the small group conversation as a part of it afterwards. I thought was really well done as well. So I thought that was a great community event. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else? Nope. No. All right, on to the approval of the meeting minutes for January 25th. Any edits to that one? I didn't have any.
No, I didn't have any either.
Others, we were all here?
Yeah, we were all here.
Okay, that wasn't the one. I was like, making sure we have quorum to go ahead and
Nothing,
approve
the
that
three of
one.
us were here.
Yeah, we were. All right.
I can make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for January 25, 2022 meeting.
Okay.
And there's no comments?
What?
Any comments?
And no public comment on that. Yeah.
I'll second it.
All right, motion is second, and vote, Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And Shelley, aye. All right, approval of the minutes. And now we have a draft 2022-23 Board of Trustees calendar, and this is a discussion, not necessarily approval, so we're getting a preview of it, looking at it, if you have any questions, and then it'll come back for a final vote.
Alrighty, so the proposed calendar for this next school year is very similar to this year's. So there would be one meeting in July if needed. So historically, in Ross Valley, we don't always have July meetings.
Yeah.
But the past couple of years, we've needed them. And so if that happens again, if not, we will just properly notice the cancellation of the meeting. And then as we look into August, so getting us into the very, before actually staff even come back to work, just some administrators will be back to work by then. And then August 23rd is after the new school year. We did make some changes to September because if we had just stayed with the calendar as it was rolling, with just changing the dates, we would have had a board meeting on Rosh Hashanah. So we did not want to do that, of course, and so recalibrated those meetings for that month. But in terms of the remainder of the meetings, they basically are the same day cadence as they have been this year and last, just of course updating the dates to keep them on Tuesdays. So I'm not sure if what the board thinks of these dates. There's some reasons why we need to have them placed like this, and that has to do with some of the required approvals of items. And so in order to have the two-step processes, those kinds of things, or to meet any other statutory timelines, is what we look at too when we develop the calendar for you all to review and to approve, is to just be sure it also meets staff's needs for any timelines for approvals and things like that that we need to have.
Okay.
And so tonight, just to get your eyes on it, as Shelley said, and then if there aren't any other or any questions or considerations for other dates, then we would come back at the next meeting on March 1st with the recommended approval.
I will not make the July 19 for sure. But part of that, it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only other thing that we might do before approval is to just have us all, give us a deadline to get back to you
okay.
with any dates that we know right up front that we are,
Exactly.
just to make sure we don't have any
Okay.
known quorum issues
That's a
for a
good idea.
particular date
Correct.
based on
Um,
anybody's vacation.
Because last year in August, we typically one of us will miss one or two of those during, let's say one during the summer.
Yeah.
But if we are all missing the July 19th, for sure, I am not calling you from France.
Yeah.
But yeah, if everybody's gone in July, then we might have to.
So that'd be the only thing I'd just check
Yeah.
in with us, give us a
Can
deadline.
For the summer.
absolutely do that, and then the other thing that we would do too is if, let's say that, that we don't have this on the calendar, there have been some years where we haven't had a July date listed.
Yeah.
But then if we needed to schedule a meeting, of course, we would schedule a special meeting.
Right.
And
Got
then,
it.
of course, make sure that we had a quorum of the board.
Yeah.
Right. Needed to.
Okay, perfect.
So
Okay.
tonight, then, I think we know, Marie, for sure you cannot be here on the 19th. Anybody else who, the other
I
two,
hope to be
Rachel
back
and
on
Shelley,
the
do you
second.
happen to know offhand?
I don't know
have plans
offhand,
at this
I
point.
think when I did a preliminary look, but I will go back and do another,
All right.
Yeah,
you know,
and
final.
I need to schedule my vacation in the next 2 weeks. I might, I think I will be back on August 2nd.
Okay.
I think, but I may not be.
Make sure the kids are back into school.
School coming like 2 weeks after that. I need to be back at work, trust me. Like, Chris, like, how are you going to take that much time off? Yeah, 3 years without going home. It's about time I go.
Yeah, you need to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
3 years.
Okay, all right, I will
Yeah, I know.
follow up then with the other trustees and get back in touch with
Yeah.
Rachel
And
and
let you know.
Shelley and for sure.
Okay, great. All right, on to superintendent and cabinet reports and updates.
All righty, so Chris, any other updates from business services?
Only that we did, we are in the process of finalizing our insurance claim with our insurance as a result of the White Hill claim.
Yeah.
And so we had the loss on the 24th and 25th, and we quickly moved everybody out, and we were back in right around the 6th of December. So despite all of the damage that was done, they were pretty quick in getting that. And it was a lot of work from the site staff and a lot of heartache for the staff and the students. And so we really do thank them for everything that they did, and we understand the stress. That was part of the reason that we worked so quickly, and so I just wanted you to know that we did receive the invoices last week.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and Julia, anything more with curriculum and instruction? HR?
Just, we are planning a follow-up to Are You Raising an Anti-Racist? There's a meeting coming up with Charmaine, one of the presenters for that evening, and we're gonna debrief the evening and talk about potential next steps. So excited about that. Deborah McKnight is coming to join our admin team on Monday. And so we always look forward to that, and just, she really is an invaluable coach for our administrative team, so she'll be working with us then. On March 3rd, we have our next parent equity task force meeting coming up, and in order to plan for that, there's a meeting with Deborah and some of the parents on February 15th. And we had a really successful Wednesday district grade level meeting this week, rolled out the remainder of the book bundle books, the social justice book bundle books, and had, I participated in a number of conversations that were just great, where teachers are really talking about the complexities of reading these books with kids, because some of the books are, just raise a lot of questions, and different teachers have different levels of comfort, and it's great for them to be able to support each other and go back and put it into practice and then come back together again. And just rocking and rolling with the hiring already, and we're still working on filling positions. There's interviews taking place a couple of times a week, and anticipating possible openings for next year, and really trying to make sure that we will be ready to cast our net wide. And I think that's it from me.
All right, Eric, student services.
Let's see, we have nurse Megan O'Hare is gonna be delivering the family life lessons to our fifth graders. So she is coordinating with the different fifth grade teams, and our colleague Meredith Woodward here in the district office is helping with that effort. So we're looking at the stretch of time from mid-March to mid-April, where she'll be going to deliver those lessons, and 3, most likely 4 lessons. Probably she'll park it at each school for a week. So that's really cool for those kiddos. And then also too, we are the recipients of a 3-year TUPE grant from the state, Tobacco Use Prevention Education. And they recently announced that they're actually extending an opportunity for a year 4 of the grant. So I've been starting to talk with Chris and Marcy and the White Hill team in particular to start to talk about ideas, because the support that we receive through that grant supports staffing, supports curricula, supports other professional development, certainly that supports tobacco and vaping cessation, and also looks to support priority populations, so underserved students, and really ties into all we're doing on the equity front. So more updates to come on this amazing opportunity for us to potentially garner more funds to support a lot of important work. That's it for now from Student Services.
Thank you. Great, thank you. All right, and just so many of you have talked about things that I was going to cover, so I don't need to. And one of the things I will say about the hiring and recruitment is during midwinter break, Julie and I, the first time ever, Ross Valley will be attending a virtual job fair, and it's held by the Tulare County Office of Education, so down in the Central Valley, and it's a statewide job fair, so that'll be very interesting. And thank you to Sean and Julia for getting our virtual booth set up and ready to go.
Sean's done the heavy lifting there.
Thank you, Sean.
Mad graphics.
First time we're doing it, or the first time it's happening?
There have been some virtual job fairs and some statewide, but it's our first time ever attending. So as Julia mentioned, trying to cast a wide net is really helping to make sure that folks know about our school district and get interested in hopefully coming to us. And what often happens at job fairs is they happen at times where we don't know if we'll have any positions open. And so our presence there is to just talk and to help folks get to know about Ross Valley, and then to help them know how to find out more and to keep an eye on when positions do open. How do they know about them? Where can they go look? So that'll be interesting. Be our first one. It'll be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And then we have registration for new students for next school year is well underway. So our in-person registration began on February 2nd, and all of our schools now will be having their preview nights coming up, and they're all going to be in person. So Manor ended up switching theirs from the date that they had made it Zoom and to make it later, when hopefully there would be lower case rates, and true to form, lower case rates, and here we are. First one starts tomorrow. And so between this week and next, we have the elementary preview nights, focusing on kind of the school-wide program. Most of the families who do come are TK and K, but helping them to really learn about what is the school where they would be sending their child for 6 to 7 school years. 6 to 7, holy moly. Yeah, wow. 6 to 7 in an elementary school. Wow, that's a long time to love where you go. Absolutely. And also just a lot of activities. So for the month of February, as Rachel mentioned, with the White Hill concerts that are happening. And what's most fun about these is that it's 5th through 8th graders performing together. And it's one of the goals of the music department is for that vertical articulation and that really help our 5th graders see how will they be able to continue their musical experience and career when they leave their elementary school and go on to White Hill. And just today, in that vein of welcoming students into Whitehill, between yesterday and today, Madam Maria went to all of the elementary schools, 2 yesterday and 2 today, and I had the good fortune of being able to attend the one that they did at Hidden Valley. And it was so exciting to see the kids, their questions related to the excitement about being able to take more classes and about what are the elective offerings, the enrichment offerings, the clubs, and then they also described their 3 teams. And I loved it the way that Ms. Lubomirsky described it in terms of once you are one of the 3 teams, you're that team for life. So your whole experience at Whitehill, and it's done how they are selected onto the team is kind of based on an inventory that they take through our counseling department. And it really helps to make sure that the teams have a wide variety of interests and types of students who are on each of the teams, and then they can earn spirit points and those kinds of things throughout their career there. So it's kind of a fun way. So the excitement of the kids, their questions, a lot of fist pumps going into the air. And Matt and Maria were just commenting when I spoke to Matt this evening how the kids are so excited, and their interest and enthusiasm and their behavior, their general just excitement about being in school and moving on into 5th grade, as nervous as they might be, it was palpable, and they've loved it. So they switched up to what they've done, because sometimes the kids have gone out to Whitehill, but it's hard, right now, especially with transportation, to have our kids travel around. So they take their show on the road. And then related to COVID, aren't we all tired of it? Certainly so. I think the exhaustion around from every single person, staff, administrators, everybody is managing our students and our families. And it's exhausting, and it is definitely where a lot of folks had their weekends, to kind of rest and rejuvenate. It's still needing to deal with whatever positives or exposures might come their way. So it is a lot. And so just to be extremely thankful and acknowledge all of our administrators, our administrative assistants, Donna Faulkner, who is helping with our COVID response effort, and our students and families, because again, with the vigilance that our students and families, when their kids are sick, they're really doing their best. And sometimes you don't know that you're not feeling well until the school day may have started, but they are very good about keeping their kids home. One of the things that we have been able to take a look at is our supply of the at-home test kits that we have. So we're able to expand our ability to let students who need to test out of quarantine be able to have access to them. So we will be hanging on to a number to ensure that all of our staff have access to a test should they be exposed or need to get back to work. And we want all of our students and staff in the classrooms in our schools and here at the district office. And part of that is that mitigation strategy of testing to know. But there's still a shortage. And so we are going to be monitoring our level that we have. And if at some point it looks like we're not going to be able to get any more, then we'll just pull back on the allowance for students to test out of quarantine and go back to, for them, symptomatic only. But we'll maintain the supply in order to ensure that all of our employees have access to testing.
Do we get our supply through MCOE or directly?
Well, we started out through a pilot program that was between Marin County Office of Education, Marin Health and Human Services, and the state. And then when the state was able to see that we were one of the counties that participated, and then once they were able to see that that was working, then they rolled it out across all school districts in the state of California. So now we're participating through the state's supply and program. So any that we get are directly from the state, but they come through the county office. So, and then there are some elements that we have which are able to come to us directly, and that is with Chris and Donna working together on that. Donna just came to all of the sites to do quality control with the tests to make sure that some that are from the Binax Now model or product are actually their quality is still holding up, even though, because the state had extended the expiration date.
Oh, got it.
So we need to be sure that they're still,
still up.
still, in working order. And then all of our school sites, Donna will be working with them to get their SSSPPs updated. We think that there might be some changes coming forward with the guidelines, but enough has happened that they're stable enough right now that to have the sites have had to revise their SSSPPs only to have a guideline change the day after. It was
worth it.
They need to focus
Too much
on.
work.
Yeah, they're instructional and all the things that they have going on at their sites.
Plenty to do.
And let's see, anything else? I think that's it for now.
But that was plenty.
Yes. Thank you. All right. I think we are coming to the end of our meeting. This is usually the last bit where we have any meeting reviews, future board topics, board directions, or meeting debrief. So if there's any other kind of procedural or meeting things that anyone has any comments on or wants to throw in, this would be the moment to do it. Otherwise, Marcy and I are always available if anything comes up after the meeting about needing to add agenda items as usual. Just let us know and we will put it into agenda planning.
And also note for the upcoming meetings, March 1st and March 8th. The March 1st one falls the week after we return from midwinter break, and as such, our agenda planning for both of those meetings will be this next Tuesday, the 15th.
Got it. So get us any agenda items soon.
Yes, if you have any,
That's great. And that's also for anybody who's listening in the public, if there's anything, if you want to make any comments or anything or let us know anything ahead of time, feel free to get in touch with us.
And the second interim will be on March 8th, right?
Correct.
Correct.
All right. And with that meeting review,
9:31.
it is 9:31 and I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting.